Last topic on feminism. You mentioned, and mungkin ini yang kakak paling familiar salah satunya. You mentioned that you are pro-choice but not necessarily pro-abortion.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because I'm pro-choice in my laws and legislations, but I'm anti-abortion in my personal ethos and my morals. So let me elaborate more on that.
Hmm.
I'm pro-choice because if we are operating off of the narrative that a fetus is a living being, which a lot
Mhm.
of people on the pro-life side,
Yeah.
they argue that, right?
Yeah.
If we are operating off of the narrative that a fetus is a living being because it has a heartbeat or, because whatever,
Hmm.
then by that very same token, you cannot give that living being a legal right that no other living being has, which is the right to use somebody else's body to sustain their life without that other person's full consent. Ngerti nggak?
Oke, jadi maksudnya uh, if this fetus is a, jadi kita berangkat dari pro-life perspektif kan. Kayak if this
Yeah.
fetus is a living being, dia ada dalam tubuh wanita itu tanpa full consent wanita itu under certain circumstances. So what you're saying?
Yes,
Okay.
that is what I'm right because I can't use your body. Like I can't force you to donate me blood, for example, or like
Yeah.
for you to be attached to a machine so that it sustains my life and I don't have your consent for it. That's not a
Yeah.
right that I have. So why should a
Yeah.
fetus have that right if you are
Yeah.
again operating off of the notion that a fetus is a living being that is subjected to the same laws and rights as the rest of us?
Yeah.
So that is the reason why I am pro-choice. And again, that is in laws and legislation. I think legally, legislatively, we need to have the right to an abortion. We need to have the access to an abortion because women need to have that choice of what to do with their body. I am very much like when it comes to bodily autonomy, that to me is absolute. That is absolute. But what I think is missing from a lot of abortion and pro-choice discourse is also the fact that ultimately what you are doing is ending a potential life. That I'm just
Yes.
people can argue with me on that one, but that is the moment that a fetus is created, the moment that there is an embryo. But I do want to disclaim, look, if any medical professional tells me that I am wrong and they are able to substantiate that, like absolutely, like I am wrong. But
Hmm.
where I stand right now is that you are terminating a potential life that I think, number one, warrants at least some degree of apa ya kayak harus ad, ada rasa. Maksudnya intinya aku tuh jangan sembarangan lah. Like you
Yeah.
want to get an abortion, that needs to be something that you realize exactly what you are doing. Jangan
Yeah.
sembarangan dan jangan dianggap enteng.
Yeah.
Um, and what was my other point about abortion? It's not just the fact that you are ending what is ultimately a potential life, and there needs to be some sort of reverence for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the word that I was looking for. But it's also an abortion is very dangerous for the woman as well.
Yeah.
And so there also can't be, as a result of, laws and legislations that uphold bodily autonomy, there can't also be this culture whereby then all of a sudden, like, I'll just get an abortion on a random Tuesday. You use that as an excuse to basically not follow up with safe sex protocols, like using
Yeah.
protection and, all that type of stuff, and just be negligent in the way that you go
Yeah.
about having your sexual relations. That's also not something that is good. It is
Yeah.
harmful and it is also a disrespect to potential life.
Yeah.
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 So I hope that paints where I stand.
Yeah. It really does. Do you think abortion is okay in the condition of consensual sex between a couple?
Abortion is okay within
Jadi,
the
ya, jadi misalnya ada couple yang they had sex, terus let's say mereka tiba-tiba kecolongan gitu, jadi tiba-tiba hamil, meskipun mereka udah pakai kondom, udah pakai contraceptives gitu. Do you think it's still okay?
Of course, yeah, actually, and you know what? There's data to support this. Most cases, the majority of unwanted pregnancies is actually after both people. It's an accident. Like they've taken all
Iya,
of the precautions to
iya,
avoid the pregnancy, and yet it still just happens anyway. Because yeah, sometimes shit just happens, right?
iya,
Gak
iya.
apa-apa sih.
Okay. Do you think the fetus is a part of the mother or is it a separate being?
I mean, sure, I might get into trouble with this, but technically, like, I wouldn't necessarily call a fetus a parasite, but it
Yeah.
behaves like one. It's its own living entity within another living entity that requires the mother in order to survive.
Okay, but you wouldn't call it a part of the mother, right?
No,
Like a body part of the mother. Okay.
it's not a
Um.
body part either. It's its own. It's well, an embryo is not a living being. A fetus, that's very much debatable, and I'm not a medical professional. I'm not even going to touch
Mhm,
that. But
mhm.
it's basically its own organism living inside another organism. So it's kind of like a parasite.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um. The problem I have with jadi I always tell my friends I'm pro-life kan. Jadi I always tell my friends when we're talking about abortion, I have a spectrum of moral certainty. If if abortion is done, jadi menurut aku yang boleh ya, yang boleh itu abortion when the life of the mother is in danger. I th- yeah, when you have to make a choice gitu, either the mother or the child ya kan. I think it's okay gitu, because karena you're gonna lose one either way gitu. Nah, dan yang tidak boleh adalah if it's consensual sex gitu. I don't think you can, yeah, I don't think you can say I want the sex but not the baby, karena that's the natural apa effect of sex is the baby, right? Nah, the gray area is in cases of rape gitu. Jadi kayak of course I'm against rape gitu. I think all rapists should be dihukum sebesar-besarnya gitu. Tapi I'm not sure bahwa kita tuh bisa kita bisa membunuh bayinya begitu saja gitu. Maybe kita akan punya pandangan berbeda because you call it a fetus, I'd call it a baby, ya kan? Tapi kayak yeah, what I don't agree is that it's a potential life. I think it is life, ya kan? Tapi just like any other life, it's still in its earliest stages of development and requires the mother to sustain it gitu. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. The argument of you can't consent to sexual activity and not consent to a baby because that is the natural byproduct of you having sexual intercourse. That is wrong even on a how should I phrase this? Do you consent to dying in a car crash because you got into a car? You decided to ride a car? Enggak dong.
No, I wouldn't. Tapi I would say that crashing is a factor I need to take into account, right? Maksudnya kayak saat aku naik mobil, that's why we have SIM kan. Untuk tahu bahwa we're a responsible driver because we know that crashes can happen at any time gitu.
Okay. Okay. I think okay, disregarding the whole car crash analogy because honestly, I feel like that analogy we're gonna it's not apples to apple anyway.
Mhm.
I think it's more so the again, so how do you feel about the data that I presented you with just now, which I can send it to you after this so that you can put it
Oh
up on
yeah.
screen. The
Mhm.
majority of unwanted pregnancy cases is after the fact that people have taken the necessary precautions and yet accidents still happen anyway. So what happens when they've put in the time, they put in the resources in order to prevent something from happening and yet it still happens?
Yeah. I I think we shouldn't kill the baby. That's what I think gitu. I mean ini aku belajar dari from various sources ya. Salah satunya misalnya kayak from sex ed gitu dulu pas sekolah. Maksudnya kayak there are many cases, many steps ya kan. The guy bisa minum contraceptives, I think. The women juga bisa. You can use condoms and you can pull out early. Gitu. Jadi kayak
Oh no, do not do the pull-out method.
ya tapi I think there are lots of maksudnya ada stagesnya yang bisa menjamin kehamilan itu tidak terjadi gitu. Nah, I'm a believer in God gitu. Jadi I believe that everything that happens itu sesuai sama what God has ordained gitu. Jadi if those things udah dilakukan and it still happens, is there mungkin ada flaw in the system ya kan of how you try to prevent it or that it's divinely ordained gitu. And I think in both cases you can't just kill the baby gitu because again it's the natural byproduct of sex. Would you agree?
I think it's really this is understandably where the topic of abortion is very um apa ya, gets very polarized, and somehow, and I have to also reconcile with the fact that in certain cases, uh, it is just the way that it is, because for people like you that come from a religious background and adhere
Yeah.
to certain religious values and principles, I'm somebody that, this is public information, I'm agnostic. And even
Mm-hmm.
then, my family religious background, like it's Buddhism and Confucianism, right? And so it's
Mm-hmm.
also, how do we have this topic of abortion and adhere and, still maintain scientific facts from medical
Mm-hmm.
professionals, but at the same time respect, um, the rights and liberties of people of different faiths to conduct their personal matters, in accordance to their faith.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, yeah. So I understand, like, this conversation is very difficult, but you said that we should not allow abortion in cases where it was consensual sex. Um, so do you mean that in a legislative way?
Um, yeah, legislative and yeah, and a personal way too gitu. I think it should, maksudnya harus itu tuh berasanya nggak serak gitu. Kalau misalnya you apa you had sex lalu hamil lalu you wanna cancel it gitu. Maksudnya kayak I think everyone yang engages in sex harus ready for the consequences gitu. Maksudnya kayak oke, kita sekarang pakai kondom, kita sekarang udah pakai ini, tapi there's still a chance that the baby's gonna akan ada gitu. And I think everyone should take that into account and be prepared before doing the action. Does that make sense?
I mean, I think that would be I, of course, I agree that before you engage in sexual intercourse, don't be stupid about it. Take all of the necessary precautions in
Mm-hmm.
order for you to avoid an unwanted pregnancy. That being said, again, when you reconcile with the data, majority of unwanted pregnancies as a result of after they have taken all the necessary precautions. And I guess now it is a matter of, you also have to take into account, what is the life of this baby going to be like in the future? Because
Yeah.
would do you really want this baby? Let's go with your
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
terminology here. Do you really want this baby to grow up with parents that are not at all equipped to become parents? They don't have the financial resources. They do not have the financial capability, the mental and
Yeah.
emotional capability of raising a child. Because I this is where you and I might disagree, and a lot of people
Yeah.
disagree with me on this. In a lot of cases, it's actually a lot more merciful for certain children to never been born.
Yeah. Sebenarnya aku setuju sama itu, dan maksudnya oke, bukan setuju setuju dengan maksudnya kayak of course I don't want these children untuk lahir in unfavorable conditions, right? I think misalnya kayak contoh, let's say the mother and the father itu SMA 1 when they engaged in sex, lalu anaknya lahir ya kan, lalu the world goes to shit for the both of them gitu, kayak anjir ini gimana nih caranya nih, lagi how are we supposed to sustain the kid. I agree gitu bahwa itu tidak baik, tapi I would say, nah ini mungkin perspektif yang berbeda ya. I think in the lens of a pro-choicer, like pregnancy itu bisa di undo by 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 let's say killing the baby or removing the fetus, apapun term yang mau digunakan. Nah, yang aku pegang adalah pregnancy itu nggak bisa di undo gitu. Like once it's done itu nasi jadi bubur gitu. You gotta take it as it is gitu. Jadi what I would say to that, bukan kill the baby, but don't engage in sex unless you're ready gitu. And I think this is a good reason why sex should be done within marriage gitu, I think.
I mean, yeah, see, this is where we definitely disagree, because
Bukan
marriage
tolak
is just,
ukur ya. Hmm.
maksudnya kayak, ya, apa penting, bukan apa pentingnya, maksudnya kayak, what does it even change? Like, marriage is just it's a procession. You get like a bunch of documents, and then like poof, like that doesn't
Yeah.
really determine much of anything other than just the fact that you got married and here's a paper to prove it, right?
Yeah.
But also, the other question is, then back again to my initial premise, right? Like, you can't give a living being, if by your definition, it
Mhm.
is that a fetus is a baby, which is a living being, and that
Yeah.
there are, and that's why, like, it has rights, just
Yeah.
like the rest of us, like, it needs to be protected,
Yeah.
just like the rest of us. Are you okay with giving that living that particular living entity special rights that the rest of us don't have?
Like what? Like what special rights?
That they have the right to use somebody else's body in order to sustain their lives without
Yeah.
the other person's consent.
Hmm.
Is that something that you're okay with?
Ya,
So
aku akan coba.
special rights.
Yeah, I'll try to make 2 points about this. Yang pertama, I do think fetuses or unborn babies deserve special rights. Sama seperti non-combatants itu jangan diserang sewaktu perang gitu. Atau sama seperti bagaimana women and children should be given access first gitu. Misalnya dalam evakuasi gitu. I do think itu harus ada. Karena of course mereka nggak bisa survive by their own account ya kan. Itu yang pertama. Yang kedua, ini aku tadi belum sempat bilang ya. Aku personally, tapi it's okay if people do this, tapi aku personally terganggu kalau misalnya people say that fetuses aren't humans gitu. Karena I think this is precisely the tactic yang digunakan sama Nazis gitu, saying the Jews aren't humans. Jadi
Yeah,
and that
dehumanization.
way, and that way kita bisa remove the rights atau mempertimbangkan rights mereka gitu. Maksudnya kayak I think you mentioned earlier that you can't cherry pick people's human rights, right? Gitu.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think when people dehumanize these babies or fetuses or whatever into different categories, aku merasa itu scientifically just false. Tapi aku juga merasa bahwa that's just wrong gitu. What do you think about that?
The fuck, I wanted to make a point just now and then and then it escaped me. Semantics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think a fetus is potential life.
Hmm.
Is it human? I mean, you can get very philosophical with that. What even is a human?
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, it's a lot of semantics, and also I think primarily it's medical jargon. Again, I'm very careful. I have limitations to how much I can engage in conversations surrounding abortion because so much of it hinges upon actual medical scientific facts that I
Yeah.
am not neither you and I are equipped to
Yeah,
to
exactly.
really be talking. So I'm trying to maintain my boundaries here. But I think it's also what you in the beginning you strike me as somebody who's very pragmatic and the well, you were making a utilitarian argument, but I think you strike me as somebody who is very pragmatic. And I guess let's remove morals and religious values and ethics out of the equation. I think just
Yeah.
pragmatically speaking, if we have the medical technology to, as long as it's under, my caveat with abortion, I must say, is that if it's past a certain like developmental stage, like let's say you're in month, I don't know, let's say like you're in month 6 out of 9, I think at that point, I think at that point, you might as well just deliver the baby, because it's also a matter of like your personal responsibility of like, I think majority of, barring of like as like specific cases, special cases, but most of the time, like you find out that you're pregnant by like what? Actually, no, I need to look this up.
Mhm.
How far in do you usually find out you're pregnant? I think like around 4 weeks long. 4 weeks is what? Is that like a month in?
Yeah, a month.
Like about a month in. And they're usually, again, barring of very special cases, that there are signs. You waited 6 months? I think at that point, just like give birth to the child. Have a cesarean. A cesarean is,
Yeah.
like, and I talk to a lot of women now. They're like, if you're having a baby, just have a cesarean. It's so much easier. Have a cesarean, pop the baby out, and then give it up for adoption. But barring of that, what I'm trying to say is, let's just think of it pragmatically. If you have now the medical technology to do an abortion, because you know that you do not have the financial resources, you don't have the mental and emotional capacity, and there's still so much of yourself and your life that you need to prioritize first before you are able to prioritize being responsible for another living being. You have the technology is there, you have the access to it. Why not just take it for the betterment of everybody? Because you know that you're not going to be a good parent.
Yeah.
Pragmatic aja. And if it's
It's
again, as long as it's under apa ya, kayak
a
there
few
needs to be
months old. Mhm.
there needs to be like a time limit to it. I think usually
Mhm.
people say like time limit for abortion. I think is usually like can be performed up to 9 weeks of a medical abortion can be performed up to 9 weeks of pregnancy. And then, but
Mm.
then suction abortion can be performed up to 13 weeks of pregnancy. Suction is, I think, the one where it's like, I think
Okay.
you start seeing the bentuk of the baby, and then you
Yeah.
just suck all the
Yeah.
contents out.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, nah ini mungkin kayak one point I want to make is that I don't think ini, tapi ini personally ya. Jadi I'm not trying to force this view on anyone gitu. This is my personal view. I don't think we can talk about right and wrong di saat kita tanpa kita menginclude ethics and morality. So I think right and wrong itu datang dari moral compass yang kita miliki kan. I think that's a separate discussion where this moral compass comes from. Cuman I'm not a utilitarian. Tadi yang aku kasih pedofili itu it's just a apa? Ya devil's advocate gitu. Utilitarianism mengatakan bahwa if it maximizes everybody's happiness then that's okay gitu. I I don't hold that view as of today gitu. Aku baru beli bukunya John Stuart Mill on Liberty and Utilitarianism, cuman aku belum baca gitu ya. Nah, jadi allow me, however kurangnya ini to insert my personal religious and views di sini gitu. I think some things are wrong because they are wrong gitu. Maksudnya kayak let's say gini. Ada laki-laki menikah sama istrinya, dia nggak happy gitu. Dia nggak merasa istrinya bisa memenuhi emotional needs-nya, sexual needs-nya gitu. Lalu akhirnya laki-laki ini selingkuh sama perempuan lain gitu. Tapi the wife doesn't know about their affair. Pokoknya selingkuh, dan karena selingkuh kebutuhan emosional lelaki itu diterima gitu. Ada gitu. Jadi waktu dia pulang ketemu istri sahnya, dia nggak marah-marah, dia nggak merasa insufficient gitu. Like meskipun everybody's happy, jadi istrinya merasa suaminya fine, suaminya menemukan pengganti untuk istrinya, we can still say that's wrong, right? Because kebayang gak sih? Jadi kayak I don't think just because you have the medical capacities dan killing the baby would be better for everyone is the right thing to do gitu. Right gitu. That's makanya ini makanya I'm still working on this moral uncertainty gitu loh. Tapi kayak that's how I view things.
Because I think kamu juga berangkat dari the notion that the baby is going to feel pain. Is that also something that you're factoring in?
Not really. Jadi I think babies kayaknya anaknya nggak akan rasain apa-apa deh menurut aku ya. I think they wouldn't feel anything gitu. Apalagi maybe kalau 6 atau 3 months ke bawah, I don't think they would feel anything. Tapi
Yeah.
it's
First
life gitu. It's life. That's my point.
But so I guess your emphasis is more on apa ya? Okay, let me just talk about my focus. My focus is more so on again like the bodily autonomy. People in discussions about pro-life, like it's always just about the life of the baby. It's always about the life of the fetus. What about the life of the woman that has to give birth?
Yeah.
And what about the life of the two parents that one, not even a reckless night, like one night of something just going statistically wrong, and then all of a sudden like they have to pay the price of it for the rest of their lives, and it's not even just their lives, like it's also the life of this new life that they are bringing into the world.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where I'm coming from. And then the other thing that I wanted to add in there, just as a disclaimer, is that I think, I don't know if you agree with me on this one, but I think you will, maybe. I think why you're getting an abortion also matters. Why you're getting an abortion.
Contohnya gimana? Contohnya, the example.
Contohnya, I'm getting an abortion because my husband and I have taken all of the necessary precautions, but it just shit went wrong. Like there's just an error. It happens. Kondomnya bocor. There's no way we could have prevented that. And we are not in a good financial standing at the moment in order to be able to bring a child into this world and ensure that that child is going to live a layak life. I think that is that is an acceptable reason for getting an abortion versus shit, now we forgot to put on
Yeah.
protection, too horny, and so we
Mm.
just did it, and we were just
Mm.
hoping that you know what I mean.
Yes. So would you say in the latter condition, maka they shouldn't have the abortion?
No, legally they have no legally you need, again, bodily autonomy by laws and legislations. You need to have the legal rights in order to do that, because bodily autonomy must remain absolute, and you cannot give
Mm.
a fetus. That's my that's the argument that I will die on. You cannot give a fetus a right that nobody else has, right? But
Okay.
I think that does that need to be socially condemned, that needs to be socially condemned, and that attitude needs to be challenged. Yes.
Okay. Nah ini, okay, if I push back one more time before we close gitu. Okay.
Go ahead.
Uh, Here's the problem gitu. Maksudnya kayak two things. Yang pertama, about not giving the fetus special rights gitu. Once again, I think we do give special rights to certain people kan. Gitu misalnya kayak contoh, apa ya? Contoh deh, misalnya kita naik Transjakarta, kenapa sih yang dari dalam bis mesti turun duluan? Bukan orang dari peron, dari stasiun, dari haltenya masuk ke dalam dulu, you know? Like that's siapa
That in
duluan
law?
gitu kan? Kenapa?
Is that in the law?
I'm not sure if that's in the law, but I think itu acceptable. Normnya tuh seperti itu gitu. Jadi kayak kalau misalnya gitu.
No, that's not a law. In law,
Okay.
there's no special.
Okay.
There's no.
Okay, okay. Let's choose another example. Misalnya kayak I don't know, maybe non-combatants atau older people or men and women should have certain privileges in wartime. Is that in international law or something?
That's not an international law. So that is not a formally written down legislation. That is a form of, like, I would say, a social courtesy that we do, but it's arriving from a utilitarian and pragmatic standpoint. The reason why, for example, like in the Titanic, the women and the children and the elderly, the elderly goes first. Women and the children, they're the future, right? So you need to save the
Yeah.
future. The women is because you only need one man to be able to impregnate multiple women, whereas, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. This is what Kanye also brought up, right, in your discussion.
Exactly. So you only need one man to be able to impregnate, like, all of these, like, different women, whereas, like, with different women, and the opposite doesn't work. So
Yeah.
with children is because they're the future. With women is because they can just keep getting pregnant and push out a bunch of babies. With the elderly, it's actually because they're kata kasarnya, like, they're not useful. Like in situations like in the Titanic, for example, the elderly might just, if anything, make things more unproductive.
Yeah.
They're slow. They're gonna be taking up space. They're gonna be blocking exits or entryways, and so it's better for all of these people to just disingkirkan, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the reason.
Okay.
Why. That's not in law.
Okay. Aku kalau gitu nggak bisa kasih contoh sekarang about the law gitu. But I would say it's better kalau misalnya ada hukum seperti itu, gitu. Jadi misalnya kayak, atau yang paling eksplisit adalah non-combatants itu tidak boleh diserang waktu perang.
Non. Okay. Yeah.
So this is in international law gitu. Jadi jadi kayak sekarang tuh people are more lagi mengadopsi nilai-nilai HAM ke dalam ilmu berperang gitu. Bagaimana kalau perang itu you need to be as discriminatory as possible. Yang mau diserang hanya competence-nya aja gitu. Nah, so those are special privileges. All are human, ya kan? Tapi karena different conditions, maka they have different let's say some have privileges more than others gitu. Nah, I think we should give this baby, fetus, whatever it is, the same kind of treatment gitu. Itu pertama. Tadi what was your original question? Aku jadi lupa deh sekarang.
Well, my original is, like, are you okay with giving a fetus a legal privileges that no other human being has? Are you okay with setting that type of precedence that, oh, it's okay, like, you know, all is equal under the law except for.
Iya. Tapi I mean we sometimes do those exceptions karena conditions juga kan. Like isn't that true gitu?
Well, because I
I don't
think
know
with the
legally sih.
because non because the I don't know anything about international humanitarian law and like
Iya.
combatants. With non-combatants, the reason is there's non-combatants and there are combatants. Combatants make the willingful, conscious decision to engage in combat. So if they
Yes.
die in combat, that's something that they signed up for.
Ya.
That's something that they signed up for. Non-combatants don't sign up for that. So there needs to be a distinction, right?
Hmm.
So what would be, I guess, what's the equivalent of that in abortion?
Um, I would say maybe the equivalent adalah tadi karena both combatants and non-combatants are human, and ini from my perspective, the baby and anyone outside the womb are human. Dan tapi karena different conditions, jadi kayak sama seperti combatants tidak memilih ada di medan perang, bayi ini juga tidak memilih ada di dalam rahim ibunya. Maka kita memberikan dia special privilege di sana. Gitu. So
But didn't choose
that's
to get,
fine.
but she didn't choose to get pregnant.
I'm sorry, kenapa?
But there are also, okay, what's very difficult is that there are also instances where the woman doesn't choose to get pregnant either. It's just a statistical error.
Yeah, I am aware of that. Tapi sama juga tentara Ukraina tidak tidak sign up untuk berperang dengan Rusia. Kebayang nggak sih? Because
Well, they sign up they sign up in war.
oh, itu
Doesn't
masalah.
matter who
Oke.
they're going up against.
Iya. Iya, iya, iya.
Doesn't
Oke.
matter. But the other thing,
Hmm.
relating to abortion, the thing is, why I disagree with you on this one is because in for me, I'm
Mhm.
saying we give everybody the right to be able to get an abortion
Mhm.
for like legally. Legally,
Yeah.
you have the right to get an abortion. But what
Mhm.
I am in favor of is there needs to be a time limit. You can't get an abortion like literally 1 week before your baby's due.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So just taking that into consideration, assuming that there is a time limit, everybody has the legal right to get an abortion for whatever reason. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
That does not take away the right for you and your wife to not get an abortion.
Yeah. Okay.
What you were proposing takes away my right to get an abortion based off of and it's coming from your stance is built off of your personal morals, your religious values and teachings. And so it's also the question of why do you get to why do some people based off of their own personal values and morals get to create laws that other people need to abide by?
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
So it's just so much easier and it's so much more fair, and it's easier if you just give the access there for those that want it, that need it, you get it. And if you don't need it, don't want it, you just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gitu loh.
Last question. Last question. Ini kali beneran last question. Aku merasa
I'm having
kayaknya
fun with this, so don't feel like you're inconveniencing me or whatever. Like I genuinely
Okay.
like I
thank you, thank you. Aku pengen nanya gini aja sih, maksudnya eh ini tuh jadi ada dua pertanyaan sekarang.
go.
Jadi so 2 points ya. Yang pertama, I think I'm not gonna ask you about religion karena kayaknya misalnya ini akan tercakup di sini gitu. I think without God, kalau misalnya God doesn't exist gitu, we are all that is, there are, ya kan. I don't think we have objective moral value, so we can't say something is objectively wrong, you know. Kayak kebayang gak sih, karena we're all, let's say, cosmic orphans gitu, we are all here by accident, ya kan. There's the only thing yang bisa mengatakan benar atau salah adalah mungkin kita menetapkan bersama-sama, so it's intersubjective. Then I would also say that human rights is a myth. It's a literal myth because we made that up, right? Gitu.
Yeah,
Misalnya kayak gitu. Jadi kayak misalnya praying mantises, setelah the male and the female kawin, the female would often break the neck of their spouses gitu. I don't know why they do that. Tapi when humans do it, it's immoral, ya kan? We know it's wrong gitu. Jadi kayak so there's this thing called the moral argument in which we say that objective moral values tuh ada gitu, and therefore we can assume that ada sumbernya itu dari mana gitu. Jadi first of all, I think when we talk about this is wrong or this is right, we're actually referring to an absolute, ya kan? And I think these absolutes cannot be changed according to situations that easily. Nah, tapi that's a point. Nah, tapi the question I want to ask adalah, kalau misalnya ada sistem pemerintahan di mana pemerintahan ini menaungi siapapun yang ingin melahirkan, baik dia korban rape atau mereka consensual sex, kalau mereka mau melahirkan itu didanai, kalau mereka nggak mau anaknya akan diasuh gitu, akan ditaruh di tempat panti adopsi yang memadai gitu, orang tuanya akan dikasih misalnya funds atau pendampingan mental to go through kehamilan dan kelahiran itu. Kalau misalnya itu ada, would you agree that should substitute abortion?
No, because
Why?
you're only thinking about the life of the baby. You're not thinking about what this is going to do. Usually men kind of just, anything to do with pregnancy, men kind of just leave unscathed, obviously, because men just pump and dump, that's it. But you're talking about the psychophysiological well-being of the baby. You're not thinking about the psychophysiological well-being of the woman that is giving birth to the baby. Do you have an older sister or a cousin or friends that have given birth?
Older cousin, I think.
You have an older cousin, she's given birth?
Yeah.
Okay. Has she ever talked to you about how fucking horrible those 9 months were?
No. Maksudnya aku sering dengar, I can imagine, tapi aku belum pernah mendengar secara eksplisit.
Yeah, see, because and that's the thing, back again to representation of, like, you know, why in the case of the House of Representatives, we're talking about laws and legislations, and yet you want to give the majority of that decision making to a bunch of men that don't know what it is like to live certain experiences, right? So I guess this is like an example of that, actually, of just, I think you can sympathize, and I think you can imagine. You don't know exactly what goes on in the brain and in the body of a woman that is pregnant. Lu kalau cewek tuh kalau hamil tuh otaknya itu dibajak sama bayinya, beneran dibajak. So you you know, there are also take into consideration postpartum depression. That's also a thing, and just like permanent physical changes to your body, your brain chemistry. So you also need to think about what this means for the woman. So after she gives birth to the baby, she gives it up to the government, and then what becomes of her?
Iya, nah ini ceritanya dalam, can you still hear me clearly? Atau jadi kurang jelas? Jelas, oke. Jadi programnya itu meliputi, let's say, the well-being of the mother juga. Jadi selama itu dia ditemani, ada fasilitasnya, dia mungkin dikasih hotel atau rumah terbaik gitu, ada, dia nggak sendiri gitu, ada community-nya. The only thing she'll be missing, ini sekali lagi from me, I'm not an expert, aku nggak tahu, of course aku nggak tahu kehamilan itu seperti apa gitu. The only thing she'll be losing is time, karena dia artinya perlu banyak di rumah mengasuh, let's say 9 anak ini selama 9 bulan. Tapi whatever career atau life she had before, itu akan dijamin didapatkan kembali gitu. Misalnya pekerjaannya dijamin gitu, bahkan dia dapat tunjangan dari pemerintah. If that happens, would you think that should trump abortion?
No, I still I'm on the side of no. I think the government can throw in whatever material compensations at the woman. You can pay her money, you could give her apa tadi katanya kan tunjangan, terus apa fasilitas, apa company kayak gitu. But I think the decision is up for the woman to decide whether or not that is worth it. Worth the other things that she's having to give up, worth the ribet banget. Kalau berada di dalam situasi ini kan itu pasti ribet. Apakah is all of this worth the keribetan?
Yeah.
Is that something that she wants to sign up for? So that's why like the safest option and like the option that just makes the most sense and that accommodates to the most number of people is to just give people access to certain things like abortion. Give everybody access to it. For those that don't want to take it, you don't have to take it. It's still
Yeah.
it still accommodates for people like you that are religious, that don't believe in abortion under certain situations. Ya udah, kalian punya pilihan gitu loh.
Okay, I think we can agree to disagree then on that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. That's the
Yeah.
way life goes.
Yeah, yeah, but I truly appreciate your time Kak for being here. This has been, I think, ini mungkin diskusi probably my first with a proper and knowledgeable feminist sejauh ini gitu. Meskipun
Ooh.
banyak teman-teman di HI yang misalnya mengaku sebagai feminist, I don't think they have the same depth of knowledge as you do. And
Wow.
so yeah, so if I know ini pasti orang sudah pada tahu ya, tapi for those who don't, if people wanna know you more, mereka ingin tahu your content, where can they find you, Kak?
You find me on the Indoji show, and I promise, like whatever you have seen of me on clips, like that is so like apa the kesan that you get from seeing me and some of my guests even on clips, like that is not nowhere near like the entire picture that is painted through watching like full episodes. And I understand my full episodes are really long,
Yeah.
but but I mean, you don't have to watch it the entire way. You can always just like chill. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah, yeah,
also
yeah, I do.
at the core of everything that I do, really, like I am the most passionate about just having discourse. Like that's the thing, and it's true to my personality. I love to talk to people.
Yeah.
I want to be able to say my piece and to hear other people say theirs, and for us to go back and forth. And we don't have to agree. We can agree to disagree. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not in the business of trying to convert people. Like I'm not a fucking missionary or whatever. Like I think we just need to get into the habit of normalizing having discussions on things because that is the only way that we can progress. That is
Yeah.
the only way that we can, if there's a better alternative. Like you said, I actually like some of the things that you propose. Like that might actually be like a good like thing, an option that the government should like explore doing. And that really is a result because like you had the bravery, you had the courage to just put that idea out there. And I think like that's just the whole point, and that's the spirit of like what I do. I come across as very aggressive and
Yeah.
very dominant and
Yeah.
bitchy, and I understand that. That's just the way that I am. But I'm also just trying to work on like being a little softer. I think it's mainly also because I'm here in Indonesia and there are
Differences.
cultural differences, and like of course I have to acclimatize to being here. So
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kak Indah, once again for this discussion. I truly agree bahwa discussions like this can be hard, but it's important and I think berdampak bagus juga nonetheless. So Kak Indah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for being here. Thank you to everybody for watching. Follow me on social media, YouTube, all that type of stuff, and of course follow this guy. And yeah, peace out, everybody.
Thank you. See you guys.